Hello students, good morning, and today we are going to see about the fourth chapter from grammar, the sequence of tenses. In the last grammar class, we saw about tenses, that it is a Latin word called tempus, means time. Now, in the tense, how the sequence comes. Now, what is the sequence? Sequence means order. Sequence means order. So, right. So, still if you are confused, let me tell you the sequence. You see, when you are writing the spelling, Sequence, if you place any one of the letters here and there, or hither and thither, or if you misplace any one of the letters, so what happens? You cannot pronounce the sequence correctly, or you cannot find out that it is the word called sequence. Yes or no? So the Sequence, it should be, the letter should be placed in its original position. So this we say sequence. It should be in order. If it is not in order, we cannot help it out. That is, we cannot able to understand. In the same way, the sequence in the tense, where the helping verb should be there, there it should be. Where the clause should be there, where the principal clause should be there, where the subordinate clause should be there. It should not mix up, or the other words should not be misplaced. If you say, like example, jumbled words, it should not be like that. It is called sequence. I think you have understood. Now, when we tell about this, what is sequence of tenses? What is sequence of tenses? Tenses are verbs that describe when an event, action or condition has occurred. And we have seen in the earlier classes, what is tense? It means time. And it is about the tenses all about the verb changing. That is, the basic verb change into verb 2 or verb 3. So we can find it out whether it has happened in the past or present or in the future. The same, it is related here. Tenses are verbs. Verbs are the main thing here that describes when an event, action or condition has occurred, when that particular incident or event happened. So we can know through the verbs. So the changes does not happen with the subject or the object. The changes happens only with the verb. Now what is verb? Verb means the action. The tense of a verb in this subordinate clause changes in accordance with the principal clause. Here a mistake is the minor mistake, PAL. So principal clause. So if you see, the subordinate clause will be dependent upon the principal clause, and subordinate clause has the another name, another word called dependent clause, and principal clause has the another word called main clause. So this subordinate clause depends upon the principal clause. So I have already taught you what is subordinate, what is principal, and what is main clause. Still, we will do a slight recap in this session. What is clause? A clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a predicate and functioning as a member of a sentence. I hope you are clear. A sentence consists of subject and predicate. Is it not? The sun is the subject, rises in the east. From rises in the east is the predicate. So here it says a clause is a group of words. It contains group of words that contains a subject. The clause must be having subject and predicate. And what is phrase? It does not consist of subject and predicate. Yes. Okay. Now, a clause is the smallest grammatical unit that contains minimally a subject and a predicate that can or cannot express a complete thought or idea. Now, it can contain a subject and predicate, but full meaning, a complete sense it cannot give. It can give the partial sense. I hope you have understood. It gives only partial sense or incomplete meaning, but subject and predicate will be there. But in phrase, subject and predicate will not be there. Let's see now. Types of clause: principal clause, subordinate clause. Principal clause, subordinate clause. Now, if you see who is the head of the school, if you see who is the head of the school, principal is the head of the school. Under principal, everyone acts according to his words. Yes or no? In the same way, in a sentence, principal clause is the main one, and subordinate clause is like the workers who are working under principal. In the same way, principal, according to the principal clause, subordinate depends. Now, what is this principal? Principal clause is an independent clause. What is this independent clause? Principal clause, or we can say as main clause. What is this independent clause? It can stand alone and give meaning. If you take out some part of the sentence also, you can have some meaning. With an example, you can see a subordinate clause can also be said as dependent clause, depends on the principal clause. For example, we waited. Listen here carefully. What is clause? Clause will be having subject as well as predicate. It is a minimal part of the sentence, right? We have seen earlier, right? You see, we is the subject, waited is the predicate. Good. Now you see, until they reached. PCL refers to principal clause. Until they reached, it is the subordinate clause. Now you see, if you take out until they reached, still you can get some meaning. Yes or no? Still we get some meaning. It is said to be principal clause. So now you see, until they reached. Until they reached is the subordinate clause, and it is dependent on principal clause. Now, how it is dependent? You see here, it is a past tense. You can see here, it is ed is added. WAIT is the basic form of the verb. Ed is the past tense. In the same way, if you see the later part of the sentence, that is the subordinate clause, you can see that here also ed is added. So the subordinate clause is dependent on the principal clause. That's what this line statement explains. I hope you got about the types of clause. We are going to see only about principal clause and subordinate clause, how it varies, and especially the verb changes, nothing else, only the verb changes. Let's see some of the rules and regulation. This is said to be the sequence of the tense. Sequence of the tense. Rules. Now see how it is changed. If the principal clause is in the present simple, and the subordinate clause will be in past simple. If it is in present, it will be in the past. If principal clause will be in present continuous, subordinate clause will be in past continuous. The same way, for present perfect, it will be past perfect. Present perfect continuous tense will be in past perfect continuous. Past simple will be in past perfect. Past continuous will be in past perfect continuous. Past perfect will be in past perfect. Past perfect continuous will be in past perfect continuous. So you might be in confusion. What is this simple, present simple, past simple, present continuous, past continuous? I'll clarify that with an example. When the verb in the principal clause is in the past tense, listen carefully. The verb, if it is in the past tense, principal clause, if it is in the past tense, the verb in the subordinate clause, from that till late it is the subordinate clause, must also be in one or other forms of the four forms of the past tense. What is that? Four forms of the past tense: past perfect continuous, right, etc. So you see here, he said, it is in the past. Now it can be, and the subordinate clause can be that he was late. Said, past tense, it is also here past tense. You said that you would help him. Would, past tense. He worked hard. Worked, past tense. That he might, past tense. Past. He said, past tense, that you were working hard. Were working, past continuous. Are you getting it? When this rule applies, when the principal clause is in the past tense, the later part of the sentence, that is the subordinate clause or the dependent clause, should come in. It must be in the past tense. Got it? Now next, if the subordinate clause states an, please understand, if the subordinate clause states a universal truth or a habitual truth, a past tense in the principal clause is also followed by present tense in the subordinate clause. Now what is this? Again another confusion. Before this slide we saw that if the principal clause is in the past tense, the later part of the sentence also should be in the past tense or any four of the past tense, right? But here it says, if it in the past tense also, if the principal clause is in the past tense also, the changes can happen. That is, in the later part, present can come. In which condition? In two conditions. If it is a universal truth. What is the universal truth? That earth is geoid shape. Geoid shape. G-E-O-I-D. It is an universal truth. Like earth revolves around the sun. It is the universal truth, right? If it is a universal truth, even the principal clause starts with has the past tense, but the later part should be in present tense. And if it is a habitual, what is meant by habitual? The daily thing what we do, it is called habitual. We can see the example here. He said that the sun rises in the east. Now here you see said is given here, but the later part you can see rises. It is in the present tense because it is a universal truth. The sun rises in the east. The sun cannot rise in the west at all. So it is the universal truth. So we are using here present tense. Now next, you said that you are a vegetarian. It is a truth. It is a truth said by that person. So you said that you are a vegetarian. Are a was not used. See, you are a vegetarian. So in two conditions, universal truth and habitual truth. Only in these two conditions you will be having with the past present tense. In other cases you will be having only the past with past. Okay, now let me tell you the sequence of tenses. Now it will be more clear to you, clear to you. He said that. Past tense, as it is universal truth, it comes as a present. This we say sequence. This we say sequence. The same way, he said that. Past tense, he was late. This is said to be sequence of tenses. I hope you have clearly understood, and rest of the things we will be learning through our online classes. Thank you.